Juliana and Brigham, it's great to see you guys.
Good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for joining me tonight. And just for anyone who might be listening to this, we had about a 15-minute get to know you call probably 2 or 3 weeks ago,
Mhm.
just to kind of map out a few of the topics that we'll be covering together. But this is really our first full conversation together today. So I'm excited for it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We're excited to get started.
Awesome. So I'd love to get to know a little bit more about you and your personal financial journey, and you can take turns here, but I'm curious to know, what did you learn from your parents about money growing up?
Well, my parents never really talked about money in the home. We learned on a small scale that nothing was ever given. We didn't get an allowance, but we could earn money at any time by doing tasks, chores. Um, and it wasn't very much. And we, looking back, I think about my hourly rate as a boy painting these fences, and I was making like $1 an hour. And I thought it was good money at the end of the summer. But they never talked about finances or really anything outside of, give 10% to the church and the rest you can use. And they didn't include us on any sort of like, oh, the bills have to be paid, or there wasn't any anxiety surrounding money, but there wasn't any education really either. We were just allowed to kind of never think about it.
Okay, so it's kind of like a blank slate, so to speak.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Napoleon Dynamite, but there's this scene where he goes and he works on the chicken farm doing like
That's
this.
what it felt like.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that.
He gets home and he counts his money. He's got like this mountain of coins and he's like, $6. That's like $1 an hour. All right, so that was you, Brigham, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you had to maybe extract some of the subconscious lessons you learned from your parents, correct me if I'm wrong here, but this is kind of what I heard from you. I heard it's important to work hard. You have to work to earn your money. And also just, it's not really something we talk about.
Yeah, I'd say I've carried those with me. My dad was in the military for 34 years, and so it was kind of like there was an easy formula of money. It's like you do your work and you get paid according to a very strict sort of disbursement. Whatever rank you are, that's how much money you get, and there wasn't really a lot of opportunity for, he worked hard, but it was almost like money comes when you work and everything is very stable and very secure. And so that's kind of my mindset moving forward, is like, as I move forward and as I work, opportunities will arise and I'll just make more money.
Mhm.
And that's sort of the mindset we can get into it later further, but like the idea that I can always make more money has prevented me from really caring about retirement very much,
Hmm.
even though there will come a time when you can't just go out and make more money on the weekend or work more overtime. There will be a time when it's so yeah, there's lots of lessons to extrapolate from that.
Can you share with me a little bit more about that idea where you said this thought that I can always go make more money means that I don't really focus on saving for retirement. Can you help me understand how that connects?
Well, there's also the thought of, and this gets into the psychology of like the world always feels like it's ending. So we're comfortable. How much money should I put aside? Or could I use it now and we'll all get blown up in a few years anyway? There's sort of this fatalist attitude that I had adopted. There's a whole thing about that. But it requires betting on the world to end. And who wants to win that bet? So I've started saving for retirement. Juliana has led the way in our savings. She's definitely more the saver. I'm sort of maybe not the spender, but I won't think twice about spending money on something that I can use to make us more money. Tools, equipment, vehicles, things like that, that I use in my side efforts to make money. But Juliana is much more conscious about saving the money we do have and not spending it as much.
Mhm.
Okay.
But she also, and correct me if I'm wrong, is she's more interested in actually doing what you were talking about earlier, is like making memories, going out, going on trips, doing things where I would be happy staying at home. And so we kind of both inhabit both of those archetypes of like she wants to save, but she also wants to spend. And I guess I'm in the same boat. We want way more money and we want to spend it on whatever we want. And we want $1 million in our retirement account. Can you make that happen for us?
Sounds about like what I want too.
Yeah, yeah. Funny.
Okay, so you mentioned this idea of don't worry, Juliana, we'll get to you. You mentioned this idea of, you know, your father was a military man. Was he active duty military or was he like, stationed on a safe base in the middle of the United States?
Yeah, we did some of both. He was active duty for all that time. Um,
He
and we lived
deployed.
overseas. He deployed several times. He deployed to the Middle East once or twice, and he was all over doing doctor stuff and went all over the world doing that.
So it's easy to see where these attitudes come from of, he might be in a situation where there's a lot of violence around him and, correct me if I'm wrong, but might have even lost some of his comrades during that phase where it's like 1 second it's this vibrant, healthy individual, and the next second they're gone,
Mm,
which creates some of that fatalist type of perspective. And then also, if you think about how finances are structured in the military, you don't exactly have to save for retirement if you have a pension.
right.
It's
Yeah, no.
guaranteed income. It's like, hey, do your time, put in the work now. We'll pay you for the work you do, and then we'll take care of you afterwards.
Yeah, same with health insurance, same with housing. Like a lot of things are taken care of. And so, not to say that they're not, my parents are financially literate, but it didn't have the same sort of, you need to do these things on your own. It's just, here's the program.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's almost like if you think of like a football coach where they're like, trust the process. Like, I'll tell you what you need
Mm,
to do. Just trust the process and it will work for you.
yeah, for sure.
Okay, that's good to know. All right, let's shift over to you, Juliana. What did you learn from your parents about money growing up?
Yeah. So my dad's an immigrant. His parents are immigrants. Um, so when they came to the US, everyone was working a whole lot to get citizenship and pay for things. And I think that made my dad very stressed about money always. Um, he's very intense about it. And growing up, I have a big family, so I'm the oldest of 7. My dad works, my mom works in the home, so he's always worried about money. My mom is less so because she's focused on the kids and she spends it all, and then they have arguments about what she's spending it on, and why. So that was a lot of growing up. Um, Growing up, we didn't have allowances. We always earned money. There was always opportunities to do chores or earn money. And if we did get an allowance, it was conditional on doing chores. So more of like, you'd unload the dishwasher every day and you get $5 on Fridays, type of thing.
Oh, tell the dandelion story.
My dad, my mom is very crunchy, you might say. So my dad would pay us, what was it? It was 5 cents per dandelion head, like the yellow head. You could up it to I think it was a quarter if you got the root out, and I think it was a dime for a fluffy dandelion head.
But
So
if you blew the dandelion head seeds, then you didn't get any money. It wasn't worth anything because he knew that they were just planting more dandelion seeds.
yeah.
Or they replaced the roof on their house, and the roofers left a bunch of nails all over the driveway. And so Carlos, her dad, he calculated in his head because he's very analytical.
Mhm.
He said it'll cost X amount to replace a tire, so I'm gonna pay them like a quarter per nail that they pick up.
It was $1 per nail.
Oh, a
Around
dollar.
now,
Oh, a dollar per nail,
getting a
because it'll
bunch of
still
nails.
be cheaper than replacing, getting a new set of tires or whatever the. And he still tells this story. So yeah, that's very indicative of her money, working for money situation growing up.
Hmm. Or
I
like
kind of love that
sticks.
actually.
Yeah. We'd get paid. It was like a penny per stick. Like it was not very much. We had a lot of land. Just going out picking up sticks before you would mow the lawn, or picking up walnuts was another one. So always opportunities to earn, but he's always kind of stressed about it. And it was a lot of like when we would like produce or vegetables, there's 7 of us. A carton of strawberries does not last very long. And he'd always be like, who ate all the strawberries? Like, that's so expensive. Or it's, going to Costco for the weekly Costco run. Like, oh my gosh, like it's so expensive. Like, I guess that's where the food thing comes from. But yeah, which I get because it's a lot to feed that many kids. So it was
Okay,
always more of
wait,
a,
can I interrupt here for a second?
yeah.
You said, I guess that's where the food thing comes from. What food thing are you referring to here?
Oh, I always stress about groceries
Okay.
and the
And
cost
food
of food
waste.
and food waste in
We
particular.
don't waste any food whatsoever. And if it goes bad, there's chickens, so we have to sort of no food goes to the landfill, like period whatsoever.
You know what's funny is that I had a similar message growing up. My dad used to tell us at the dinner table if we didn't finish the food on our plate, he would say, "There's children starving in Africa because you
Yeah.
aren't finishing your dinner."
Yeah.
Like kind of that idea, like you should be grateful for what you have, and the way to be grateful is to not waste it. Okay, right. So I think that gives me an idea of how you grew up with money. How do you think that that has influenced how you manage money today? You're an adult, you're married, you have your own household. How have some of those messages influenced the way that you manage money together?
We've gotten a lot better about communicating about money. I was super avoidant all through college and after, and when we were recently married. I thought it would be empowering for her to I would just make money and she would get to manage it. And we learned that she does not enjoy managing all the money alone. Go figure. So it didn't feel like a very equal partnership. And so in the last maybe year and a half or so, we've had weekly financial meetings, weekly or biweekly,
That's
where
been the
we
last year.
last year, like consistently, where we track every dollar in and out. Oh yeah, I guess it's when since we started the budget, which was 10 months
January.
ago.
Yeah.
So um it's been a lot nicer to share the burden because it truly I thought it would be fun to say, oh, look how much money we're making, but it is a burden to say, look how much money we are spending, or how much look, we have something now because we didn't have anything when we got married, and we still don't really have any money, but we have more than we did. And so now there's something to lose. There's something to invest poorly. There's something to, depreciate. And so it's kind of it's mental labor that goes into it. But anyway, how did we used to manage money together?
Let's see. It'd be like, oh, like let's try this budget app, and then we were on that for like a couple months, and then fall off the bandwagon, and oh, we're gonna try this, and then that doesn't work. Or like I'm just gonna ballpark and guess how much money we're gonna spend on groceries, and then we go over, so that doesn't work. So this year has been the year of the budget, and we've actually been pretty successful with it. New Year's resolution that actually paid out
For once.
for once.
Okay. So you mentioned that you've been having a weekly financial conversation together since the start of the year. That's awesome, by the way. I always encourage people to do that. How have things changed since you've started doing that? Like what are some of the improvements that you've seen?
Well, we started to look at a budget as a way to instead of a way to restrict our spending, it was a way to focus our spending.
Mhm.
Um, so we used to do, I think since we were married, we have given each other, we call it giving each other sort of this cash allowance of fun money, of, you know, unapologetic money. You don't have to justify why you spent it, where you spent it. It's just your money. And that used to represent a percentage of our paychecks. So we would do 5 or 10% of each of our paychecks go to one person, 5 or 10% go to the other person. And that was cash. And so now I guess the evolution of that idea is now we budget for it. And so we do a certain amount per month of cash allowance. And we've done a similar idea for groceries, for
Mhm.
car repairs, things like that, where I guess now that we have a more stable income, we can represent that instead of with a percentage when we were working super variable hours in college and things. But now that's a fixed amount. But it's sort of an empowerment thing of we're allowing ourselves to spend more on groceries because we value eating well and cooking at home. And we use the budget to try and focus our spending.
Yeah.
Did that answer was that even the answer to your question?
Yeah, that's awesome. So sounds like it's improved communication, and then also it's created more freedom for you that, you're not seeing this as something restrictive. It's just we're being more intentional to spend money on things we care about, which are eating healthy and, having some of that fun money for each of us
Mhm.
that we can spend how we want.
I saw a quote or read it, or I don't know where I saw this quote. Something like, if I look at your budget, I should be able to see like what kind of person you are and like what type of person you care about. So it's been, I think, empowering to add line items in. For example, we care about physical media, so buying records or cassettes or DVDs and building a physical media collection. So it's been fun to be like, okay, well, we get $50 a month to spend on whatever, physical media thing we want. And it's been kind of fun to like, okay, we got to go out and spend that.
Yeah, and it turns into a date. It turns into a positive experience.
Mhm.
Or we save all our receipts, or we try to.
Mhm.
And to see a receipt for $50 from the record store and then input that into our Excel spreadsheet and say, oh, we filled the bucket for our physical media for this month. Wasn't that fun? And it's a sort of lighthearted way to approach the budget instead of, I can't believe we spent so much on X, Y, or Z. We have these buckets that can be filled as we see fit. But what's the deeper question? We're talking about the budget. What are we going more cerebral?
No, I think you answered it well. I think you already have a lot of really positive habits around money, and we'll be able to see that when we look at your balance sheet too, that I took a peek at before we hopped on the call. What would you say is the number one area where you disagree when it comes to money or finances?
You go first this time.
I guess like we don't really argue about it. Like we don't disagree. We're usually in alignment on big purchase, big ticket items. I guess the thing that we maybe disagree or we just don't align completely with is percentages of like how much money are we putting towards our 401k or IRA or investing. I would say we don't disagree. We just don't.
I
We're
don't
not on the same page
I'm
with it.
uneducated on you're more educated than I am on what the actual numbers should be. I was thinking what came to mind was our sort of attachments to money are different. So I try and detach myself from the money and view it as like these are numbers that we can use to our benefit in and I try to take sort of a like I've tried to divorce emotion from money and it's not entirely successful because I mean I work brutally hard. I do sales some part of the time, but usually I'm in trees, climbing trees, cutting trees, moving trees around, planting them, doing all kinds of stuff, and it is very difficult. And so I used to think of money as like, look at how many hours this money represents of blood, sweat, and tears. And I've tried to divorce that from my mind, but I've found it seems like you have a more your emotional connection to money is what money represents. Money represents being able to buy a home. Money represents security. Money represents health. And so that's the sort of emotional aspect that you've tapped into that I have tried to completely divorce myself from. So I think I went too far, and I think you'd do well to tap into a little bit of the robotic uh, number in, number out way that I look at things.
Okay. So I have a feeling there's a lot going on beneath the surface here. But, Brigham, you said something really interesting that you've tried really hard to divorce your emotions from money. Does that remind you of anyone?
No.
Remember when you told me about your dad?
Is that Papa? He's a pretty, stoic man.
Yeah.
I just don't want to feel because it feels bad. Like if you make a bad deal, or if you get ripped off, or if you have to pay a fine, or you have to pay car maintenance, I just don't want to be sort of taken in every direction when I have to, because there are large expenses in life. And if I self-flagellate every time I, buy an organic vegetable and it's $6 instead of 3, I just I'm setting myself up for so much misery, and it's all self-inflicted. And if I can just use money as a tool, an impartial sort of cold mm, tool to further my ends, I feel like I'm protecting myself from a lot of unnecessary heartache. When I kind of got ripped off on a deal replacing some suspension parts on the car. And I was like, well, I could either freak out about this, or I could, the car works now. I overpaid.
Okay. All right. So thank you for sharing that. I can definitely relate to some of those feelings you've had of, regret from making a bad financial decision. Let's just go there for a second. You mentioned you got
Mm,
ripped off on parts. So you paid for repair, it doesn't work out. You have that moment of realization, I just got ripped off. Okay. What does that mean about you?
I don't know.
Well, was it because you had gone to the same guy and were like, "Hey," it was a larger car repair,
Oh yeah, it was a bigger bill.
bigger bill, and I was like, "Did you take it to anyone else, or
Oh
did
yeah,
you
I didn't get a
call
second opinion.
anyone
I just sort of
else?"
was like, hey, this is the money. Here you go. That's the number on the page. I make this amount. I can
Mhm.
afford it. But it didn't feel as satisfying as the last one.
Okay.
So,
Can I tell you what I think is going on here? So you mentioned this idea of trying to divorce your emotions from money. I think the main reason you're trying to do that is because the predominant emotion you have felt around money is feeling bad about yourself,
mm,
right? Like I overpaid for this, therefore I am bad with money.
mm,
When I feel like I'm bad with money, of course I'm going to want to divorce my emotions from money, right?
mm.
Because I've never actually felt good about the financial decisions that I've made. Is this making sense, or do I just sound like a crazy man right now?
I think so. I guess I've also avoided making financial decisions, probably for a similar reason. I
Because
just
you're
try to
avoiding
not
feeling bad.
I try to not buy things. I try to just make money instead of, you know, applying it or using it.
So what's the formula here? Making money feels good. Therefore, I will
Mm.
work harder and make more money. Spending money feels bad. Therefore, I will avoid spending money.
Well, I like to spend money. But maybe it's for those larger purchases. It's harder to feel good about spending lots of money. And I don't think I'd be served if I felt really good about spending lots of money. Um we'd probably have less money. So it's worked as a band-aid for now, but I'm seeing where you're coming from.
Brigham, I want to give you permission to make financial mistakes.
Mm,
It is okay to make a mistake that's a waste of money. We've all done it. That's how we learn. I'll share one of my own. So, my wife and I, we've been married almost 4 years, and I wanted to plan a surprise honeymoon for her. And I booked this trip to Mexico. It was an all-inclusive resort. I had never stayed at an all-inclusive resort, and you're going to laugh at how dumb I was. I'm on the website booking the resort, and I've only ever like booked a hotel room before, right? This is where I'm coming
mm,
Mhm.
from. And I see that the price of like I can choose the room I want, and then it asks how many people will be in the room. And I saw that if I put that one person would be in the room, the price was lower than if I put that two people would be in the room. So I was like, yeah, we're going to be staying in the same hotel room. I'll just put that one person's in the room and I'm going to get this lower price. I booked the resort. We get married. We fly to Mexico. We show up on the doorstep and we go to check in. And they have these wristbands that they give us when they check in.
mm,
And I give them my information, yada, yada. They pull up my reservation. They say, here you go. Here's your wristband. And I say, where's the second one? And it was just
Mhm.
like this horrible moment where he was like, you only paid for one. This is an
mm,
all inclusive resort. It includes the food, it includes the activities. You only paid for one person. So here I am. It's day one of our marriage together. And I've realized that I've already made a financial mistake that's going to cost us over $1,000. And we're in Mexico and there's nowhere we can go. There's nothing I can do about it. I just have to pay them twice the money.
Man, see, that makes me feel sick for you, Jackson.
Yeah.
That
You
makes
know
me
what?
feel ill.
It was just like a stupid blunder, right? And it was expensive. And I felt bad about it. I actually went and sat down. There was like this fountain with like this dolphin sculpture. There's water coming out of the dolphin. And I just sat on the edge of that fountain for like 30 minutes trying to gather my emotions because I was so frustrated. Thankfully, my wife had a really healthy perspective and she was like, yeah, you made a mistake, but we're still here. So let's just pay the money and enjoy our time. Like, we're not going to skip our honeymoon and fly home because of this mistake. And we ended up having a good time. That's how you learn, right? You make mistakes and you learn.
That reminds me of our car incident, the Mazda.
Yeah.
We bought a car for what, it's a significant amount of money. And we paid a bunch of cash up front so our payments would be low because we wanted a grown up, reliable car.
We were driving to Minnesota for my internship from Utah. I was like, I don't think the 98 Corolla is going to make it. The 98 Corolla would have made it.
The Corolla would have made it and then some.
The Mazda did not.
But on our way back after a few months, we were in Rapid City and the transmission blew up in a 2015 Mazda
with like 50,000 miles on it.
So we're stuck in Rapid City. Juliana we take it to a mechanic. He says there's nothing we can do. And we know that we have to bring the car back from South Dakota to Utah. And we're like, a tow is going to be like $3,800 or something crazy. And so Juliana had the idea to go to the local U-Haul and rent a big empty truck with one of their little tow packages on it. We'll tow the car back on the little dolly with nothing in the U-Haul. So we drove for like 20 something straight hours driving through windstorms with a big empty box truck.
It's
in a
August.
construction zone.
The U-Haul has no AC.
No AC. And so I know you felt bad. You have continued to feel bad.
I feel bad because the car was my idea. I was the one who was like, I have an internship. I want a better car that's more reliable.
I give you permission to make financial mistakes.
And we got the car checked out by a mechanic. We did everything, but
we did everything right. And it still cost us a bunch of money. And through a bunch of really nice people, we got a used transmission for a cheap price, and a guy installed it for cheap.
We still have the car, but we still hate the car.
We still hate the car because of what it did to us. And that was we were, newly married, and it was a traumatic. That's what your story reminded me of. That's why I bring that up.
That's funny. What's even funnier is that I literally drive a 2015 Mazda. Like that exact year, 2015 Mazda.
So do I.
I've had no problems. It's been a great car. So maybe.
What color is it?
It's blue.
Oh.
What color is yours?
Ours is red.
See, that was the problem. You went with red.
Yeah.
Too sporty.
Okay. So, all right. It's okay to make financial mistakes. And I think that's really going to be the first step here, which, by the way, I want to paint a picture for you of what's possible. I think it's possible to feel emotions around money without letting those emotions control you. And I think it's also possible to feel really positive emotions around money, feeling good about the decisions that you make, even when you make mistakes sometimes, and feeling good about spending or feeling good about investing. And that's really what I'd like to help you accomplish together. So with that in mind, I want to invite you to, think about what you would picture as your ideal financial relationship together and what you would want from your partner in that relationship. And, maybe we can shift to you, Juliana, since I put Brigham in the hot seat a lot today.
And I've been blabbing. I've been yapping. I want you to speak your piece.
So think about your ideal relationship with Brigham when it comes to money. What would you want from him in that relationship?
Like initiative and then equal buy-in. Because for the majority, we've been married for 6 years, together now for about 6 years in January. And I think for the most part, it's me coming up with ideas, me saying, hey, we should go do this, we should do this, we should do coaching with Jackson. Like it's me generating the ideas and doing the follow through. And so it even though we still do the weekly planning meeting and weekly budget, it still feels like I'm driving and I would like to not I don't know, I just want I guess more initiative from you.
Man, that was so powerful. You just turned to him and you just said what you wanted. You're like, Brigham, I want more initiative from you. I love that. I think that we do ourselves a disservice when we hide our frustrations from our spouse. I think it's much better to be direct in our communication. And that's what I just saw from you, Juliana. So that was awesome. Brigham, what do you have to say? What do you think?
Well, it's an ongoing process, Jackson.
Yeah.
This is not a new revelation. I'm sorry to disappoint the viewers, but this is not a first time hearing about this desire. And I think pushing toward, doing the financials together. I guess I'm still hesitant to I guess make financial mistakes, as you put it. Sometimes it's like there's a disconnect between wanting to save for big purchases like a house and then wanting to plan. I don't think the planning is so much a financial
Mm.
disconnect. It's more of an energetic disconnect because both of us are working a lot. It tends to fall to whoever's not breaking their back harder
Mhm.
to plan things, to plan meals. And so I fall behind in that way, especially when it gets to the busy season. I don't have access to like a computer or things like that to
As often.
plan trips and that's kind of been the sticking point of in January I'll be moving into doing sales full time for selling tree work and doing consulting work. And so I'm expecting a natural sort of leveling off of I'll have more time available because I used to work in an office. And when I worked in an office, I was constantly researching. We would go on hikes, we would plan trips, I would have time to be able to plan those things. I am more than willing to spend the money. I I am looking for good opportunities to spend money and um enjoy the process.
Okay. Yeah. It's tempting to get into the logistics, right? Of
Mm,
like, well, I need to find the time to schedule the trips so that I can be more involved. Right now, I don't want you to think about the logistics too much. We can
mm.
figure that out later. Right now, I just want you to turn to Juliana and respond to her. So she has just shared with you, Brigham, I want you to be my active partner in the finances. Turn to Juliana. How will you respond to her on?
I will do everything in my power to be an active partner and participant
Mhm.
and leader as long as it takes.
By the way, Brigham, I know you mentioned you're worried about making mistakes. You will make some. Juliana, that's on you to be patient. If you want Brigham to be more actively involved, you have to be willing to let him make some mistakes. And he will probably do things differently than you would do them. And that might be frustrating at the beginning, but keep in mind it's for the greater good of eventually he's going to learn from those mistakes and he's going to be equally yoked with you so that you can truly be equal partners in this. And we'll work together to fill in some of those knowledge gaps along the way as well. Okay, awesome. Brigham, what do you want from Juliana? Think about your ideal financial relationship with your wife. Turn to Juliana and share with her what you want from her.
I don't know. I want you just as you are. I want you to continue to be patient with
We can do that.
I couldn't ask for a better wife or a better partner.
Yeah. Okay. So let me share with you where we're going to go from here. Sounds like we have some mutual agreement here. Brigham, you're going to take a more active role in the finances in your relationship. Juliana, you're going to be patient and let Brigham make some mistakes along the way. So with that in mind, I want to give you an action item, an invitation for this week, before we meet next. When do you guys usually have that weekly financial conversation together?
Well, lately it's been on Sundays, but it can be Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, depending on what's going on. Usually we try and have it in the first part of the week.
Okay. Brigham, you are in charge of leading the discussion this week, which means that you will communicate with Juliana when you're going to schedule it and when you're going to do it. And when you come to that conversation, you will have an agenda of some things to discuss together and you will lead the conversation. Are you willing to do that?
I am willing to do that. I've been getting some practice doing that, Jackson. I've been growing into my new role as a financial leader of the home, co-leader with my wife. So I've been running the meetings for a few weeks now, and it feels good
Not running it.
running them. I've been doing the more active budget filling out and assessment.
Yeah, one of us looks
role.
at the receipts and one of us.
One of us runs the calculator and the other one sort of manages everything. So, but I would like to have a more an agenda, like you said, an actual discussion, because sometimes we'll just add up all the numbers and go to bed.
Yeah.
But I'll do you one better. I will be in charge and I will create an agenda and discussion topics for us to discuss.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you for doing that. And I have a template. I'll send it to you in an email.
Okay.
You can use that to help, as you're trying to create your agenda. Next week, where I want to pick up is it sounds like right now, most of your financial conversations together are really just around tracking your spending, right? Catching up on the budget, reviewing the numbers. I want to challenge you to think a little bigger than that and think about a vision of what your ideal life looks like and really get out of the weeds of the numbers and think on a bigger scale of some long-term goals and direction that you have so that we can create some alignment. We didn't get into it today, but I can tell from your balance sheet that there's definitely different financial priorities going on in terms of investing and retirement. And I'd love to help you guys create some alignment there with your financial priorities. So that's what we will talk about next. Sound good?
Sounds
Yep.
good.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me tonight, guys. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
you.
Thanks for having us.